Hi, what I'd like to talk about today is change. Suppose really I mean change in the workplace. The reason I've been thinking about it is because we've had some changes where I work, and it's been, regardless of what the changes are, it's been quite interesting sort of just looking about how it's been done. And, just, gets you thinking, I suppose, basically. And the two things that I sort of keep coming back to, I suppose, actually what I'm going to talk about today. And one is like communication. Whether that's with the people you're trying to introduce the change to, but I think sometimes more crucially, who you speak to before you do the change. So your echo chamber, who you're working these ideas out with. And the other one, I suppose, is your intention or your tactics. What is it you're hoping to get out of this exercise or this change, basically. So the reason, I think, the first one kind of informs the second to a certain extent. If you've drawn your group of people that you're going to consult with too small, if your echo chamber is basically that, just people who agree with you, you are going to be quite surprised and possibly shocked and maybe even a little bit upset when you try and sort of take your ideas to like a wider audience. And to a certain extent, I think that's what happened, with us recently. I think, and it's just the sort of, the feedback you get, and, they've sort of come out with this idea and they're sort of telling us it's a consultation, but the way that it's being done, it doesn't really actually feel, as if we're consulting on it, because one, it's a fully formed idea, and if something's fully formed, then the suggestion is that whatever consultation is going to take place isn't really going to make a big deal of difference to it. So another way of like sort of stopping that from happening is involving the people much earlier. So, like rather than having like a sort of draft proposal that you want to consult on, sort of say, we feel this needs to change. Here's the facts and ideas round about that. We would like to speak to you about that. Can you please come along to these focus groups, these meetings, and we're going to go through some of the basic ideas and some of the basic principles, and let's see what bubbles up. If you do it that way, if you involve people early, then the chances are, they're going to feel that they're involved in the process, and the chances are you're going to come up with something that's more palatable, rather than just a small group of people coming up with an idea and then basically sort of saying, here it is, tell us what you think about it. Chances are, if you do it that way, they're going to have negative thoughts about it. They're not going to be too popular. It's not going to be too popular. And I think if you do it that way as well, what you're risking is you're risking running into your tactics. So basically, you've approached this exercise and it's not really about what's best, it's about getting that idea accepted. So it looks like an imposition. You are going to impose your ideas on other people, and don't be surprised if they react to that. And what they're going to see they're being played. Basically, they will spot things within your plan, your tactics, that you don't particularly like. So one of the things that was, that we noticed was basically they sort of said, we would like to do these nice things, but we can only do these nice things if we have to do this less popular thing that's going to affect more people. So if everybody's prepared to give this up, we can do this nice thing for a smaller group of people. And I think a few people just said, well, that's not true. You can have the good thing and that thing as well. You can do that if you want to. So don't tell us that you can only have this nice thing for these people if we are all prepared to sacrifice, what we've got already. I think it's a fallacy. It's called the false dilemma fallacy. So it was quite easy for a few people to spot that, whether it was in those words or whether they sort of said, well, hang on a sec, why are you making me responsible for whether people get paternity pay and maternity pay? That's not my responsibility. That's your responsibility as the employer. So I think you have to be careful round about that. I think it's also, this has come back to the echo chamber again. If you've all sat there and convinced yourself what you're going to do is a really good idea, and then you find a reaction that you get and isn't particularly positive, it's tempting to sort of say, well, let's see you come up with something better. Let's see what ideas you've got. Well, this is our idea. What can you do? Because people will come up with ideas, if you're asking for it, that's what you're going to get. And if you've done that, if you've sort of said, let's see what you can come up with, then you're going to have to respond to all of those ideas. So that's happened to an extent. People have gone back to them and sort of said, And the thing is as well, they really went for the fundamentals. They've sort of said, look, this whole project is wrong. You've started, it's like, that's not where you should have started from. You've started from there and you'd have ended up here. You're on the wrong journey. Here's the correct journey. Here's what you should have done. You should have gone back and you should have started by involving people much earlier. You should have got them to have buy into it and then taken something like that to the larger group. And that's what people have said. People have sort of said, scrap what you've done so far, pay off your consultant, and let's go back to square one and get, the employees in the office. You demonstrate why this change needs to happen, and then ask them for their ideas about how it should be implemented. So now that's hanging there. That's where they are now. They've suggested show us your ideas, and people have done, and now everybody's waiting for their answer. Another thing that's sort of happened is, within an organisation, you have values that you're supposed to work to. Now they should be seen as a positive thing. So if people are sort of saying, we want your responses, but be mindful of the values of the council and the way you respond, and be sensitive to people's needs and feelings and stuff. You're sort of saying, so you're taking the positive values and using them as a way, basically, to control the response, to silence people. That doesn't seem, I don't think that's what the values were designed for. I don't think when, whoever came up with the values, sat down and drafted them all out, they sort of says, this will be really handy for managing dissent. I don't think it entered their minds. But here we are, we're in an organisation, and that's what's happening. People were sort of saying, be mindful of the values. They also keep reminding us about, the interaction when we have social media at work, and the interaction within the social media. They keep reminding us the rules. And at least 3 or 4 times in the last 2 weeks, we've been it's a bit like the Big Brother, please remember you are live, do not swear. And I'm like, no one's swearing. So why do you keep reminding us of this? So they look as if they're really sensitive, they're being really thin-skinned about it. And they're imagining these attacks and these things coming at them. To a greater extent that is actually happening. People are being polite, people are being civil, so they don't need to be constantly reminded about how they should communicate. Now, if they're feeling thin-skinned and feeling that they're being attacked, it goes back to the first thing again. It goes back to this echo chamber where a few people sat in a room and decided this is how we're going to do this. And then lo and behold, they've taken it to a bigger group, and surprise, surprise, people don't agree with them. If they'd been a little bit more sort of thoughtful in that initial process, they might have avoided some of this. A little expression I use quite a lot, and that's think about what you say and think about what they hear, because it's not the same thing. You can be saying something and in your mind that's really clear and logical, but what somebody's hearing is, it can sometimes flip it. You're sort of saying, I don't want to give examples. I've got examples, but they're all from housing, and I'm sure you don't really want to hear them. But just be careful. You always need to flip it round, and that's just a really good idea. If you're saying this is the message, then put yourself in the audience position and go, right, how could they hear that? And be critical. Be quite critical about it. Don't just sit there and pat each other on the back and say that's brilliant, they'll get it. Sort of say, how could they misunderstand it? Or how could how could this look like they're being played? How could this look like we're running a game on them? And how do we try and avoid that? So, I think that's, and that's maybe, going back to the fundamentals about change as well here, is is this, if it's all planned out in advance and it's definitely going to happen, don't go through the pretense of a consultation. Don't give people the impression that they've got any say in what the ultimate outcome's going to be. If you're just going to impose it, then just go ahead and do it. People have a lot more respect for you if that's what you're going to do. They might think, you're a bit of a bully, you're a bit overbearing, but at least you're not lying to them. Whereas if you give the impression that there's a consultation, that something is up for change, but you're not being honest about it, you are actually running a game, then people will work that out quite quickly, and you will increase the amount of disappointment. You're going to have, the disenchantment will be longer lasting, and it'll be deeper, because you've not been an honest broker. You've not come to this in an honest way. And once again, I think people can see that. I think right now as well, because a lot of it is online, that's the sort of how we are communicating. So people have got, time to think about what's going on and think about the responses. And also as well, it's like, if you've got, if you are coming back and sort of saying, well, let's see what you can come up with, or will listen to any ideas, however you want to dress that up. Eventually people will spot it. The same thing if you're constantly reminding people about being civil and being polite in their response, people will see that. If you're using values to try and, as I sort of say, curtails people's responses, they will see that. So, you know, so you be honest, basically. Be honest and straight with people and be as open as you can be. If you're going to start trying to, you know, manipulate, if you're going to be Machiavellian, you know, if you're going to try and run a game on people, I'm sorry, you're taking a massive risk, because, you know, people will spot it, and once you've spotted it, you're not going to be able to recover from that. That's it, you know, you're a busted flush at that point. Okay, so that's just some thoughts I've been having recently. I just thought I'd, like, you know, get them off my chest. Hope you found it interesting. You know, if, you know, maybe you've seen something similar where you work, or, you know, just in general, you know, you can see these things happening. Anyway, so if you've enjoyed the video, you know, please, you know, give it a like. If you've enjoyed the things that I'm posting on the channel, it's a bit of a smorgasbord, isn't it? You know, it's a bit wide range, and I probably need to work out what it is I actually want to do with this channel. But I'm afraid it is just going to be whatever pops into my head, that's likely to be the next video. But anyway, if you enjoy this range of sort of subjects that I'm covering, you know, please subscribe to the channel, switch on notifications so that you are informed of further videos that I'm posting. It would also, I know this is a bit of an imposition, but if you could, it'd be quite nice if you all forwarded this video or another video that you've liked onto one other person. That's my request today. That's my Sunday favour that I would like to ask of you. So that would be really good if you could do that. You don't have to, but it would be really nice if you did. Okay then, thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.